Okay, I think now we can start with the third lecture of this day two, session one. And for this third lecture, we have Professor Bipasha Kumar and we have architect Kanika Verma. Together, they are going to present. And I will just read a few lines. Dr. Bipasha Kumar. She is an architect, planner, academician with the Bachelor's in Architecture from Manit Bhopal, MR from Jamia Islamia Delhi, and PhD from SPA. She has overall 26 years of professional academic research and administrative experience. At present, she is professor at APJ School of Architecture and Planning, Greater Noida. Before coming to academics, she has worked with architectural offices in Bhopal, Calcutta, and Noida and was also practicing on her own. Her areas of research interest include urban risk, transformation of urban villages, impact of built environment, architecture and pedagogy, and teaching issues in architecture education. She's also been involved in many national and international events hosted at various institutions in various capacities. She has been a resource person, convener, and organizer of many conferences, seminars, and FDPs within our institute and others from past several years. About architect Kanika Verma. She joined TVB School of Habitat Studies in 2005 for graduation and later completed her post-graduation from CEPT University with a specialization in sustainable architecture. She is currently pursuing her PhD with AKTU and her topic is about impact of online learning systems in architectural education. Architect Kanika Verma has over 10 years of experience in industry and teaching and has co-founded an art-based practice called Baksa with an intent to promote craft and skill of diverse nature. She has worked on various projects at various scales and complexities, which include institutional, hospital, residence, interiors, offices, and campus planning. Before coming to academics, she has worked with several architectural offices in Delhi and was also practicing on her own. She is currently working as an assistant professor at APJ School of Architecture and Planning and actively participating in organizing events of importance within the institute. She's also worked in Amity and been associated as visiting professor with University School of Architecture and Planning, New Delhi for some years. So we welcome both of our panelists today. Uh, Over to you, Bipasha ma'am.
Myself, Vipasha, along with Kanika, will talk about the basic philosophy of outcome-based education, OP, followed by discussion of learning outcomes of students' tutor work as a case study. First, let us discuss what is the traditional education system. The traditional education system or the traditional teaching style is often described as a teacher-centered lectures, curriculum-centered and formal, in other words, transmitting information from the teacher to the student. The traditional learning provides the learner with knowledge or skills or both, but they are not coupled to a specific context. It belongs to the input part of the learning process. So it provides a learning environment with little attention towards the student learning. Students are given grades and ranks are compared to each other. Students become exam oriented or CGPA driven. Graduates are not completely prepared for the workforce. So you see, there is a lack of emphasis on soft skills needed in jobs. example, the communication skills, interpersonal skills, the analytical skills, and the working attitude, which is very much required in the workplace. Now, let us see what is OBE. In today's world, everything changes very rapidly and continuously. More skills are required to work with very fast developing technology. The education institutions should produce graduates to cope with technological development, thus to overcome the requirement. It is mandatory to shift from traditional education system to outcome-based education system. So another question is, why OBE? Because international recognition and global employment opportunities is becoming very essential. So the more employable and innovative graduates with professional and soft skills, social responsibility, and ethics are desired. So better visibility and reputation of the institution among stakeholders, improving the commitment and involvement of all the stakeholders, enabling the graduates to excel in their profession and career accomplishment. So now the next question is a very obvious question, that is, what is OBE? As the term clearly means focusing and organizing everything in an education system around that is essential for all learners to be able to do successfully at the end of their learning experience. So you see, this is not a single idea. This could be considered as a set of procedures. It is like democracy. So you see, there are different ways or versions which are practiced in different or many ways and in different places. So now in this slide you will see there's a comparison between the traditional educational system and the outcome-based education. Now in both the slides you can see there are some measurable inputs. The inputs are same. The inputs are financial resources, lab equipment, infrastructure facilities, faculties, number of the students. And this is the input, and from the program, what is the outcome you're getting? You're getting the number of students graduating, the quantitative grades of the students, the number of the students placed. So these are all output which are measurable, definitely. Now what is happening in the outcome-based education? The same set of inputs, the measured inputs. What is the outcome? The outcome is the course outcomes, the knowledge, skills, and the behavior of the students graduating, the career and the professional accomplishments of the graduates. So this, you see, the set of outcome has completely changed. However, the set of inputs are the same. So that is what is the difference is there, and we need to go forward with this particular understanding of what is there in terms of course outcomes, or what knowledge do you want in your student. So now there are some definitely benefits of the OBE. What is the general benefits? It is more directed and coherent curriculum. Graduates will be more relevant to industry and other stakeholders, more well-rounded graduates. So there is continuous quality improvement in this particular system. So OBE shifts from measuring input and process to include measuring the output, or that is the outcome. Now, what is the benefit to the teacher? Definitely the teachers are also benefited. So because the teacher will become far more creative and innovative in her or his career. The lecturers will no longer feel the pressure of having to be the source of all the knowledge. Nurture students to think and care. So the teacher is equally learning, and of course his ideas or the teacher's ideas are the one which will definitely help the students to accomplish with that particular goals which are set in terms of the outcome education or the course outcomes. Now if you see, to compete in a global economy in a highly technological era, a country requires a workforce, definitely, which can solve problems, which is creative, flexible, has above average communication skills, committed to ongoing learning, can work interactively. So you see, all these qualities are very much required in an architectural student, or rather a student who is going through the architectural studies. So before moving further, I just want to define a certain terms, the course. Now what is this course? Course is a unit of teaching which encompasses various topics that typically last one semester, is led by one or more faculty, and has fixed registered students. In generally we call it as subjects, right? So in a semester we have a set of say 7 to 8 subjects for each class, right? For each year. Now then, what is program? Program is cohesive arrangement of the courses, co-curricular and extracurricular activities to accomplish predetermined objectives leading to the awarding of a degree. So in our case, PARCH is the program, and the different subjects which we are having in each semester are the course, right? So then is a degree, as we all know, is the academic award conferred upon a student on successful completion of a program designed to achieve the defined attributes. Now see, if I am talking about these terms, because further when we move, we will be focusing on these terms, right? So these are some of the keys of OBE system. The US educationalist William Spady is a staunch advocate of OBE. The 4 basic principles as per Spady 1994 are clarity of focus, designing down, high expectations and expanded opportunities. Thus, for implementing the OBE system, it is very essential to first determine the desired outcome. And then, as per the outcome, curriculum delivery and assessment systems and the support facilities are planned. So you see, these 5 Ds are very important and very essential to understand. Because during the course delivery, different methods are introduced to make learning and teaching more effective and to obtain the desired course outcome attainment. Now, this is an OBE framework, and these are the critical steps of outcome education. The curriculum is aligned to the activity. Once the curriculum is aligned, teaching learning process comes into the picture, meaning by how effectively it is aligned to the activities. Then the assessment for further smooth transition, which gives scope for further improvement. So the OBE framework is a paradigm shift from traditional education system into an OBE system. So this steps, we see that is a outcome-based curriculum, the OBLT, the outcome-based learning and teaching methodologies, and finally the outcome-based assessment. These should be very well defined in the course outcomes. Now let us discuss some of the key components of OBE. These are the vision and mission of the institute, vision and mission of the department, program educational objectives, program outcome, program specific outcome, and then the course outcome. So all these components are very essential to understand when we are framing we are undergoing the outcome-based education system. Now, vision and mission, normally it is a futuristic thing which you seek to create, and normally the institutes already have their vision framed. So vision is actually the broader aspect of the institute. Next is the mission. Now this mission is actually what is to be done to accomplish the vision statement. Further, if we move, there is the departmental vision and mission. So this is a subset of the institute vision and mission. The vision and mission of the department should be correlated with this mission and vision of the institute. The mission statement might include a brief history and philosophy of the academic program, the type of students to be served, the academic environment, and the primary focus of the curriculum, the faculty roles, the contributions to and the connections with the community, the role of the research. Now, what about these program educational objectives, that is the PEOs? These are the objectives which are broad statements that describe the career and professional accomplishments that the program is preparing graduates to accomplish after 3 to 5 years of graduations. So it will come into picture after the student or the child has completed his graduation. After that, you need to see how these professional accomplishment has been there. So PEOs should be measurable, appropriate, realistic, and achievable. PEOs addresses need of the stakeholder. Next comes the program objectives or the POs. The POs describe what students should know and be able to do at the end of the program. So POs are to be specific also, measurable also, and achievable. So POs transform the PEOs into specific student performance and behavior that demonstrate student learning and the skill development. So basically these POs again are to be derived from the PEOs, that is your educational objectives. Now these program outcomes have certain dimensions. Basically, they revolve around the cognitive and the affective domains. That is, the meaning by this, the program outcomes should be taken towards the knowledge outcome and the skill outcome. So these two comes under the cognitive domains, where it pertains to grasp of the fundamental cognitive content, core concepts, basic principles of inquiry, and the broad history. And in terms of skill outcomes, we focus on the capacity of applying basic knowledge, analyzing and synthesizing information, assessing the value of information, communicating effectively, and collaborating. Now, when we come to the affective domain, we see the attitude and the value outcomes. So it encompasses the effective states, personal, professional, social values, and ethical principles. So behavioral outcome is to reflect a manifestation of knowledge, skills, and attitudes as evidenced by performance contributions. So now we see these program outcomes which actually stand alone and are independent attributes given by NBA. So what we understand out of this is when these outcomes have been already given by NBA, like we say there are 10 POs which are defined, which talks about the engineering knowledge, problem analysis, design development solution, conduct investigation of the complex research problems, modern tool usage, the engineer and the society, environment and sustainability, ethics, individual and the teamwork, communication, project management, and finance, and lifelong learning. Now, what is to be done with these POs? When you form the COs, that is the course outcomes, it is expected that every course outcome should map against one or the other POs which has been already defined by NBA. Correct. So now this is important to understand when we are framing the course outcome, they have to be linked or they have to be mapped against these program outcomes also. And apart of that, we have around 3 to 4 program specific outcomes. Now, when we are talking of architectural education, what are those specific outcomes which need to be defined by the particular institute? So here the strength of the program comes into picture, the student's ability of the respective program comes into picture. So now there is there you can say more than 10, maybe 13 or 14 program outcomes. Out of 10 are the standard ones given by the NBA, and the rest 3 to 4 will be designed by the institute or for that particular program. Now let us talk about the course outcomes. The course outcomes must state the major skill, knowledge, attitude, or ability that the student will acquire. The course outcome should be expressed in terms of measurable and observable behaviors. Course outcomes should be agreed upon by the faculty in the program and should derive program outcomes. So the course outcome should begin with a certain action verbs, right? So every course, definitely, you are, when you are writing the course outcomes, you are expecting something to the student should be able to do. Now, right from the first unit of the course and the last unit, what actually you target, what actually you want the student to be, you want to understand, then what, maybe apply his knowledge, maybe evaluating, maybe creating. So different, these particular action verbs will help you to judge or to define or to target the particular level of the student. So the process of attainment of the COs, POs and PSOs starts from writing the appropriate COs for every course of the program from first year to till the period of that particular program. The course outcomes must state the major skills. So only then we can define how, or what will be the level of that particular student or where you want the student to be. And again, here what is important, since all the students are not at the same level, so how you make sure, or what you understand by this particular course, or what you want your students to be, what should be its level, that you have to define as a teacher. So the components of a measurable outcome is the student learning behavior, appropriate assessment methods, specific student performance criteria for the success. And the good course outcome should have the action verbs to specify the demonstrable and measurable knowledge, skills, or disposition possessed by the students completing this particular course. So this should have the meaningful outcome, measurable outcome, as well as distinctive outcome. So you see also for the educational system to function effectively, OBE framework is identified. It guarantees that curriculum, teaching and learning strategies and the system tools, all which are continuously enhanced through an evaluation process. Now further, Kanika will take you with the specific example of the studio exercises. Over to you, Kanika.
Thank you, Bipasha ma'am. You have set the ground for me to extend the relation of outcome-based education with learning outcomes. It has been elaborated well by you with all the various components of OBE and how they are sequentially developing the education and learning output. So let's start putting together all the pieces of puzzle to get a clear picture of intertwined system of learning. So when we say learning, it is not as simple a word. It has its own attributes which can only develop with specific methods and methodologies. We achieve outcome only when we have clarity on our expectations and what needs to be accomplished by the end of the course. As OBE said to be a student-centered learning module, but it does not oblige any instructor for a specific structure or a method. This flexibility can be used to develop one's learning using any way possible. Another important point is that the tool of inter and intra-assessment within the OBE allows institutions and faculties to improve their outcomes. The records of outcomes for a specific student or employee can help to determine the potential and efficacy of overall system. Also, this increased involvement allows stakeholders, more specifically to students, to feel responsible for their own learning and become prepared for their challenges or upcoming challenges. Learning is everywhere. We can learn mental skills, develop our attitudes, and acquire new physical skill as we perform the activities of our daily living. Learning is not an event, it's a process. It is the continual growth and change in the brain's architecture that results from the many ways we take in the information, process it, connect it, catalog it, and use it further. Learning can be generalized or categorized into three domains: cognitive, affective, and psychomotor. Within each domain, there are multiple levels of learning that progress from more basic to surface level learning to more complex and reaches to a deeper level learning. The domain of learning can be characterized as cognitive learning, which is being denominated by the knowledge, the psychomotor domain, which is being characterized as skill, and the affective domain, which set our attitude. This characterization is best explained by the taxonomy of learning domains formulated by a group of researchers led by Benjamin Bloom along with it, with a handful of researchers in 1956. So what is cognitive domain? The cognitive domain contains learning skills predominantly related to mental or thinking processes. Learning processes in the cognitive domain include a hierarchy of skills involving processing information, constructing, understanding, applying knowledge, solving problems, and conducting research. There are 6 levels of cognitive complexity, which includes acquiring knowledge, which is the lowest level of learning, then comprehension, then application, then analysis, then synthesis, and then evaluation. Bloom's taxonomy focused on describing levels of attainments rather than process skills and did not substantially address the manner in which the learner proceeds from one level to the another. The lowest level of learning or acquiring knowledge is the ability to recall data or an information, where the next level is the comprehension, which is the ability to understand the meaning of what is already known. The upper level of from comprehension is the application, which is basically the ability to utilize an abstraction or to use the knowledge in a new situation. Further on, which is the level of analysis, it is basically the ability to differentiate the facts and the opinion. The further level is the level of synthesis, where it gives you the ability to integrate different elements or concepts in order to form a sound pattern or a structure, so it can give you effective meaning or a new meaning can be established. The last level is said to be evaluation, which gives you the ability to come up with judgments about the importance of concept or the suggested method. However, there is a new version which has come in 2001 of Bloom's taxonomy of learning, which has a lot of added features that can be useful by the educators. So they try to construct optimal learning experiences. So you can see in the table shown, the level grows from top to bottom, where the level mentioned at the end of the sequence demonstrate higher order learning. The presumably more complex mental operation is required. At the lower level of acquiring knowledge, level of learning, a student can define terms. As example mentioned that a student learn a subject of climatology or any random subject of architecture, the person can recall any term which is being memorized during the course of the subject. At the upper level, which is basically the student can establish a comprehension. It is the level where a student can explain the same term to another student in his or her own words. So basically, the student has already established and absorbed that learned information and put together in his own meaning. Further on, which is the application level, a student recognize what method to use and then use the method to solve a problem. For this, the example mentioned is when a student use the formula, the appropriate formula to calculate the solar angle. However, there are many methods being shown, but for a student to establish this idea that which formula has to utilize in a specific situation. Further on, at the level of analysis, a student can explain why the particular solution process work and utilize this analytical understanding to work further on. So example written is how a student using a climatical data, which is already known data to it or a known information, student can infer the condition of a region or area before churning that information down to utilize it further on. The higher level from analyzing is the evaluation or evaluating, where a student can combine the part of the process in a new or a useful way. So after gathering data, analyzing it, now the student is able to select best design solution out of all the learned solution. So student understand to a specific climate, to a specific region, what should be the best solution. However, these solutions are not being created by the student yet. They have been learned, they have been analyzed, they have been processed, and now the student has the assurance that this will work the best. The last level, which is the creating level, where a student can create a variety of ways to solve the problem, and then based on the established criteria, select or choose the effective method for the problem. So, as example mentioned here, a student evolve a new and effective solution to solve a critical solution by modifying or mending available solution. So, for example, if the student come up with a very interesting design facade, which has means to deal with the late daylighting or ventilation of a specific region or a specific condition or a specific microclimate, the student has reached a level of creating. Now, the second learning domain is the affective domain, where it is said that learning is just not a cognitive or a mental function, but it actually make you learn attitude. It changes your behavior or set your behavior and make you learn a lot of physical skills. So the affective domain involves our feelings, emotions, and attitudes. So, in the affective domain, there are two taxonomy given by Rathol and Newmans, where the Rathol suggests the basic level or the lowest level of learning is the receiving, where receiving is said to be, as as explained, as the awareness of feelings or emotions and the ability to utilize selected attention. So, to give you an example, listening attentively to a friend and listening attentively to someone, watching a movie, sometimes listening to a lecture is can be considered as a receiving phenomena. The next level is responding to that phenomena. Is basically when you actively participate with the learner. So when you're listening, you're also responding. The higher level is valuing, where it is the ability to see the worth of something and expresses. Valuing is concerned with the worth you watch to a particular object, phenomena, behavior, or a piece of information. This level ranges from simple acceptance to the more complex state of commitment. The next level is said to be the organization or organizing, which is the ability to prioritize a value over another and create a unique value system. For example, if a student chooses to spend more time, in her study or in her or his study rather than spending time with the friends, is when the student has or the child has established this understanding and recognized that what is more important, and he's already established the values and prioritize things accordingly. The last or the highermost level is said to be the characterization, where the ability to internalize values and let them control the person's behavior. When person understand, it is beyond what is what is shown on the cover page. When the person can go in depth and understand things better, and then everything fall in place. Another taxonomy is being suggested by Newmans, where the lowest level said to be as the identification, then clarification, then you go on to the level of implication or exploration. Then when you understand what implies, you go on, you go on a suggestion mode by modifying thing. You do the modification, and the last the characterization. The psychomotor domain, which is the third domain of learning. Psychomotor objectives are those specific to discrete physical functions, reflex actions, and interpretive movements. Traditionally, these types of objectives are concerned with the physically encoding of information, with movement, with activities where the gross and fine muscles are used for expressing or interpreting information or concept. This area also refers to a natural autonomic responses or reflexes. Psychomotor domain, as explained by Simpson in 1972, has perception as the lowest level of learning, which is the ability to apply sensory information to motor activity, where the higher level is considered to be the readiness to act, which is titled as set. Then the guided response, which is the ability to imitate a displayed behavior or to utilize a trial and error. Higher on, there is mechanism, which is the ability to convert learned responses into habitual actions with proficiency and confidence. The next level of or the next order is the complex overt response, which is the ability to skillfully perform complex patterns of actions. Then next is the adaptation, which is the ability to modify learned skills to meet special events. The last and the highest most level is the organization, which is the ability to create new movement patterns. There are two more taxonomy given by Dave in 1975 and another by Harrow in 1972, which demonstrate slight differences in different level of learning. To manifest the idea, let's discuss by taking exercises example from architectural course. To start with, let's talk about the anthropometric study. The learning objective, as mentioned here, is introduction to human activity and space required for activities. And there is a suggestive method which says involve and studies the introduction of human dimensions and functions, space activity relationship, measure drawing of simple living units. And as the outcome, we would expect students to demonstrate their learning transformed into sheets full of diagrams of average human, which are bending, moving, stretching with dimensions. However, the process is where the definite learning happens. Once we accept the idea of deliverables as the learning outcome, we lose on the effective learning. As demonstrated, student drawing and taking references from Newfort's, student may able to reach to the expected deliverables, but not to the learning outcome. Varies, if student has been asked to take measurement of another individual, the person processes the data and relate with the dimensions taken. When the student assimilate the knowledge and able to relate to other things or objects, have reached the higher order learning. And further on, when student able to evaluate the information and apply it to small situational condition, the learning reaches to higher level. And to more higher level, when student able to create design using knowledge which is acquired resolving complex situation as demonstrated in the slide, the student has reached the level of creativity. Even when student able to identify the modification and improvise the process with change of region, condition and individual level of human anatomy, and apply the attitude of various human race or gender or situation or societal changes that imply the impact of effective learning. Another example I want to use to connect the gap between the objectives framed and the output achieved. Ventilation movement diagrams as demonstrated with lines will never elevate a student to a level of comprehension of an actual or a real movement unless felt or experienced personally. A student able to generate such graphical demonstration without realizing the role of other component is where the framed exercise fail altogether. But it was never a part of the exercise, the information was never given. Hence, we have created an incomplete pool of information and expecting student to process, evaluate and create. Once we as instructor able to signify the learning objective, we select the best way possible to reach to the goal or learning outcome. These images demonstrate when one collect, experience, process the data, analyze it, evaluate it, and experience its effectiveness, one create the righteous system for the specific condition. To summarize now, data or information has been acquired, or to say dumped in one's brain, but putting it, processing it and using it effectively is only possible when it comes with learning. Our students are not computers. Putting an input and expecting an output will never accomplish through any system. Recognizing and aiming through outcome, we may maneuver them to reach to the goal. Imparting knowledge which can be best organized, fulfilling the course objective. As mentioned earlier also and emphasized by our panelists yesterday, we can say that any system which signify the role of stakeholders and give opportunity to all of them to learn and grow is the need of the hour. Thank you.
I think it was a wonderful video, and all the processes involved within an outcome-based education were first highlighted, and then how do you actually translate it as a methodology for practicing as a faculty was also explained very well. And so there are two questions. The first question is how to determine advancements under the 5 Ds of OB systems. Ma'am, could you please, Bipasha?
Yeah, sure. The 5 Ds was to define outcomes, design the curriculum, deliver the instruction, document result, and the final was the determine the advancement. So now, when the student is there, we are defining some outcome for that particular course. We are designing the curriculum as such. Instructions are there, exam or the assessment is there, and finally you have the result. Now, what about the advancement? Means, see, learning is a process. It doesn't end with the results or with the grades. It has to be taken further. So how the learners do important things, or through their learning, how could they come out with some kind of further, innovative things, which they are knowing, and that is a major step beyond itself. So the particular student or the learner has to establish those conditions and opportunities. Definitely, whatever he has been learning in his particular course, on the basis of that, or that would be the ground or the fundamentals for that particular advancement. So that is what is further or beyond that particular course. That is has to be determined as an advancement, or that is determined as an advancement. So here the role of the teacher is also very important, how he or she can take the students beyond that. And also what we are seeing, all the students are not at the same levels. So how, as a teacher or as a facilitator or as a mentor, what is your role that the student maybe at a lower level or in comparison to the other student is lagging somewhere behind? So what can you do or what can you bring innovations in your course so that he can or she can be taken further to a better level? That is about the determining the advancement. I hope I am satisfying your question.
Yes, I think, ma'am. And also, there is another question which has come. They're asking how to frame course outcomes for any subject within a syllabus. We are framing a course outcome.
Yeah. Okay, you just give me a second. I'll just share my screen where I'll show you an example of like setting the course outcomes. Yeah, is it visible? Okay, full screen, wait. Yeah, is it okay? Yeah, so now this is an syllabus for a subject research in our third semester under the EKTU means Dr. Abdul Kalam Technical University. Now, this is a research subject where the objectives are already defined under the basic principles of any research with special reference to architecture research and applications. And it has basically 3 modules: introduction, technical writing, and the book review. Now, when I'm framing the course objectives for this particular, or the course outcomes rather, when I'm taking these course outcomes, these are very simple statements actually, or simple, outcomes which we want the student when he is reading this particular or learning this particular subject. So on the basis of these objectives, which are already defined, I have come up with these course outcomes, like applying the basic concepts of research, apply the basic concepts of technical writing, analyze the data of the field survey, write and present the report, and analyze the book review. As these 3 modules were there with the introduction, technical writing, and the book review, I came up with these course outcomes. Now, what is important? With these course outcomes, I need to understand what is the knowledge level or the domain that particular student will be at par with. So now when we are talking of apply of the basic concepts of the research, we are talking of the cognitive domain. As we all know, there are basically 3 domains: the cognitive, the affective, and the psychomotor. So here the student is completely there, he or she is trying to apply some kind of concept which the student is learning, right? So then you have the basic concept. Again, it comes in under the K3, that is applying the basic concept. So this is also again in the cognitive domain. And when he is writing and presenting the report, so that is taking to an upper level of the cognitive domain. That is when he's writing, means he is creating something. So it comes to the 5th level of the domain. Similarly, he is analyzing the book review. So analyze is evaluation. So these are some of the, the verbs, the action verbs, analyze. So when you're analyzing the book review, you are evaluating. So you are in the 4th level of the cognitive. Now, since this is a research subject, basically cognitive domain is the one which is emphasized. Now there's one more here. This is regarding the thesis, which in the final year. So now, since in the thesis the student is also making model, so that is the psychomotor domain where what is being applied, right? And also the value, the role of the time management, etc. Some kind of programming the student is doing to complete his thesis. So this comes under the affective domain. That is the domain where you are actually doing some kind of value addition to your work. So this is some kind of understanding of how you can come up with the different course outcomes, and the important thing is how you connect it with the different knowledge level and the different domains. I hope this is enough. I mean, this will satisfy the query.
Yes, I think, ma'am, it'll be nice if you could also share some screenshots of that with other participants.
I'll do that.
Then there is another question, which is asking about the revised taxonomy, that is Krathwohl's taxonomy, in which he has added another final step of creating. So now the taxonomy has become remembering, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, evaluation, and finally creating. So if the taxonomy is revised, it is all well and good, but in real life situations, in while teaching subjects, all credits are not equal. Design has a higher credit, other subjects might have a lower credit. So how do you apply this kind of a process of learning within a subject which doesn't have a large credit, or doesn't have that much of importance within the syllabus?
Yeah, see, what is important is you need not connect every subject with all the levels. That is not possible. And in fact, we are in architecture, we are having the maximum amount of subjects which take us to the 5th level, that is a creative level. In any other engineering subject and all, you normally do not, you are not able to create always. So what I mean to say, you for every subject you don't take it to all the till the fifth level. There could be subject where we can only go till the second level. That is only till the application, right? So this is not at all necessary.
I also want to add here, as ma'am said, it is actually very important to understand that all subjects, theory subjects, may not end up into a creative kind of a deliverable. However, all the subjects are need to be connected, as they need to be executed at the end of the day into a physical environment. So even when we are learning services, we are learning research. At the end of the day, we are investigating and instilling that information in order to execute it at the day, when we have to sum up as a building. So it is basically like, I think it's a very minute kind of a step which is feeding towards execution of a physical environment. So creating may not be coming right there at that particular spot and the hierarchy order, but it may eventually reach out when you're gonna make building at the end of the day.
So, I think all subjects can be taken in this, this process. This can be followed within teaching all subjects, and the creating part can also come later on, or could be actually applied within the design studio if we connect exercises of construction or climatology within the design problems itself. I think that would lead to the creating. It would not per se be limited to one subject. I think all the subjects overlap and create that kind of understanding. Any more questions from the panel side? Okay. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you, Bipasha ma'am and Kanika ma'am, for a wonderful introduction to OBE. So I think that was really necessary to understand what OBE for all the participants. And with this, I would like to thank both of you for the presentation, and I would like to um, share a word of appreciation and felicitation to our presenters. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, 1 second. Yes. So is the screen being shared? Yeah. Thank you, both of you. And